What I wanted to find out is, you get the investment,
Yeah.
you find a location.
Yeah.
What steps did you take in terms to market your brand and create awareness?
Yeah.
And any incentives that you had initially to launch and to gain, a customer?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest, there is a marketing branding expert, someone by the name of Simon Sinek. If you haven't seen his video, you should download it if you're thinking of like creating your own brand. He talks a lot about the why. So why are you doing something? It's not about what you're doing or how you're doing. Yes, you'll have to figure that out, but you have to think first and foremost, why am I doing this? Why am I starting this business? And it's digging into that level. And once you understand the why, then it's kind of breaking that down and saying, well, now that I understand why I'm doing it, how do I do it? What are the steps to do this? And then next is like, what am I actually doing, right? And so there's kind of all these different parts, but I think you have to understand why you're doing this first. And then in terms of building a brand, building your vision, it circles around that why. And for me, it's really about being happy and bringing happiness into other people's lives, encouraging them to feel happy, whether it's, through like a good balanced diet or whether it's about spending more time with family and friends. It's really about connecting with other people and trying to get to, hopefully, people feeling more happy about themselves, about their lives. I think that's really important because life is short.
Yeah.
We have one chance to do this and there's no point, but, why not get the most out of it?
When you say the fact of, the whys and figuring it out, was the vision always crystal clear, or did it adapt? Because I know people have ideas and then it changes, and it's like it's okay for it to adapt and for it to grow.
And no, it's a good question, and that's why I think having that initial vision is important. The why is having important, but yeah, it absolutely changes, and I think you constantly have to adapt and change with what's happening around you. The world is constantly changing. So I think it's important to have a goal or a mindset, but that goal, it's okay to change, right? Your brand can evolve. Certainly Maple Fitz has evolved tremendously over the last year. We started off first with, we're a healthy eatery and juice bar in Fitzrovia, hence the name Maple Fitz. And, I thought it was all about kind of getting customers to come through the door, educating them about food and serving food, but it's become so much more than that. Like we now do, a lot of catering. We do a lot of corporate events. We just did a big press day with French Connection. We were their catering partner as well as with Urban Outfitters. We did a lot of catering for some of our partners across the street and down the street from us. And I've started doing talks on, wellness and understanding how to prepare food at home and understanding what goes in your body and how it impacts you. So it's becoming so much more. And I don't know where this is going to head. Like I think, I don't have a clear picture to say, okay, a year ago I thought, okay, I'm going to be opening stores. That's my goal. Now I'm not really sure, but I think that's okay. And I think that's also why it's important to like have other people to talk to. Like having a mentor is really, really important. I can't stress that enough. Someone you can talk to and get advice from, because there's always going to be a lot going on when you're starting your own business, and you're going to get pulled in 40 million directions and you're not really sure where to go. But I think you do have to grasp those opportunities where you can and take a risk, see where it goes.
Before we actually started, we were talking about mentees and mentoring, and even at your stage, you still yourself want to have someone that you can have.
Absolutely.
To mentor you. But just shying away from that for the second, you opened up the restaurant or the eatery 14 months ago, was it?
Yeah.
So has it always been plain sailing? Has it been rough? Because I think, it'll make sense. So what were the challenges that you found after you launched?
Oh man, so many. I think one of the biggest challenges is, and I have been very lucky, is building a team around you. So building as an entrepreneur, someone who's now created, I call Maple Fitz my baby. Mm-hmm. I've created a baby essentially, and I still find it very hard to let go, but you need to find good people around you that you can trust. And they may not always, do things your way. They may they may make mistakes. They will make mistakes. I make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but you have to move past that, right? You have to try always to kind of see the bigger picture, right, and not focus on those little things. But yeah, loads of things go wrong. I mean, on our first press day, and I'm talking about operational things that are challenges too. Like on our first press day when we first launched Maple and Fitz, our cold press juice machine broke. And this is, you know, a 2,000-pound piece of kit that I just bought from America and like shipped it over here to the UK. And sure enough, when the machine broke, I called the manufacturer and they're like, well, lucky for you, all our parts are only in the States and you can't find them elsewhere around the world. And I was like, what? How is this possible? So, you know, as much as I wish like teleporting something was possible, it's not. So of course they said, well, don't worry, we'll get you the spare part in 2 weeks. That was the day we were to launch. All these press were coming, like all the press were coming in that day to try Maple and Fitz cold pressed juices and food.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must create a bit of anxiety.
Oh yeah, unbelievable. But then again, it's finding. I was lucky. The head chef working with me at that time, he, you know, we all kind of sat together like, well, what are we gonna do? And him and my husband actually, you know, opened up the machine, started looking around. They had never, you know, opened a cold pressed juice machine. I don't think many people can say they have. But they went in, found the broken part, immediately ran to our neighbors who were like a small repair shop, which they're pretty amazing, and said, hey, this is the piece that's broken. What can we do, you know, as a temporary hold? So I don't share the story too often just because you'd be shocked at what the solution was. But we, it was basically this like plastic ring that held part of the machine together, and this plastic ring had snapped. This plastic ring is a specific diameter with this, you know, a specific thickness. And the guy at the shop said, well, you know what people used to do when like a fan belt broke in a car, they would repair it with women's pantyhose. So it was my husband who, you know, had a conversation with this guy, and he was the one who basically was like, I really need this. My wife's like restaurant is launching today. Like we can't live without it. So he's like, he's like, it's a long stretch. He's like, you can try it, but why don't you run over to Boots and get a pantyhose? And sure enough, the most useful pair of 8-pound pantyhose we've ever purchased in our entire lives. We tied it up into a knot, and some reason again that my head chef knew how to do like, you know, nautical knots. I don't know why. Luck, I guess. So unlucky then lucky that I had the right people around me to help me solve this problem. And so yeah, that happened. But you know, things like that happen all the time. You know, deliveries get missed, orders don't show up. Operation, there's always challenges, or you know, people coming in and you know, purposely trying to take advantage of, you know, you being a small operator. You know, we've had you know, people come in at the end of the day, pass us a 20-pound note to pay for a bottle of water, and sure enough, it's the end of the day, it's a fake 20. You know, so yeah, really, yeah. Wow. So you learn from that, and they take advantage because it's a small shop at the time. I didn't have anything to check the money. I didn't even have a pen, and that's my fault. I didn't know any better, and so they know Maple and Fitz is just open. They don't know anything. We're just gonna come and just like try and launder as much like counterfeit as we can. And so that happened to us a few times. So it was devastating because at that point, you know, I'm not making money. Every pence counts. Like every pence counts. So, you know, it's really devastating and discouraging because people coming in and taking advantage, and stuff like that's going to happen. But you just got to pick yourself up and say, and it goes back to like that question of why I was doing this and focusing on your, and that's why it's important to have like goals. You know, you got to step back, and I kind of keep like my vision with me at all times, and I constantly remind myself on those days where things aren't going well, remind myself that, you know, there's more than this, and you know, you just got to pick yourself up and keep pushing forward.
When you get to the point of, you know, the launch day's happening, something comes to kind of like almost gate crash the, you know, the outcome, and then, you know, you actually you're operating now. And then you're now having to learn that people may be trying to swindle you. Yeah. Although you said you had your vision, and at some points you would have been discouraged, how did you actually just like literally get through it? Like when it happens, do you have like a coping mechanism, or do you call your husband? Yeah,
I guzzle a bottle of wine. No, I'm kidding, I don't. I think there are a few different. I would say there's kind of like two ways I cope with. I think everyone has to find their coping mechanism. I think that, you know, everyone is different. There are two things that it really helps me. I would say one is absolutely my husband, my family, and friends. I think especially as humans, when things aren't going well, we tend to, I guess maybe not everyone, but at least I think a lot of people, I do at least, you tend to want to keep it inside because you're embarrassed. You're like, it was embarrassing that, and those £20 notes were collected on my watch. I took the cash. It wasn't even an employee, it was me. So it's super embarrassing. I'm angry at myself, you know, and it's, you don't always want to share it, but I think, again, starting your own business, it can get quite lonely. So it's, you know, don't be afraid to share, you know, your happiness and your sadness with like your family and friends. And even through hard times, they're going to be the ones who are going to pick you up and encourage you to move forward. So I think that's the one way I can cope. I think the second way I would say is, for me, it's keeping balance physically and mentally. And so for me, yoga for me is very important. Once a week, going to yoga, it's my time, an hour, you know, and it's also for my body. I go for jogs very often, again, by myself. So it's about being in your own head and in your own space to think about like what's gone wrong, what's gone well, and just trying to reflect and understand why things happen and what can you do next time. It's already happened, but you need to give yourself time to like learn from it and think about it. And so, and also, I guess, you know, working out is a good adrenaline rush, right? Like you know, if you do a quick boxing class, like you're feeling pretty pumped afterwards, right? If you lie on your couch, like sulking, drinking wine, you may feel good, but in a different way, right? So I think it's that balance of like keeping your body and mind active. And I find that keeping my body active is just, if I don't work out in 1 week, you do not want to be around me. I'm grumpy, I'm irritable, I'm just not a nice person. So stay away.
Being a woman in business, and also being, we spoke about diversity, have you found that challenging at all? Whether you're negotiating contracts, I mean, not whether you know it, you know, how's the word? That some things you feel like we spoke before, some things you may feel. So have you felt greater pressure that you're a woman in business, owning your own eatery? How have you found that? Because it still is a man's quote-unquote world.
Yeah, it is. I think that you have to prove yourself. I think that if I were an older man, you know, sometimes that's credibility in itself. If you have white hairs, you know, you're experienced and you're wise, you know. So being a female, it is harder. You have to work. I think you do have to work a little bit harder to prove yourself. But I think we are fortunate enough in a way that, you know, in the UK especially, I think women have just come so far. There's loads, you know, I work with a program called Mentor Matcher, and it's headed up by a fantastic lady named Miriam, and it's sponsored by Nikki Morgan, who's a UK minister, and she's in charge of women and equality. So being part of things like that, I think, is really important because you're around other women who can like support you, understand the journey you're going through. And I also recently, you know, took part in a kind of a charity organization called Right to Play. And again, it's focusing on giving women the chance through sport, trying to educate women on their rights as well, you know, as a human being. And so I think I wouldn't say it's again, in the UK, it's not a constant battle for me. There are moments where sometimes I feel like I have to try a little bit harder because I'm a female, but I think that's okay, because hopefully when they do understand, you know, what I'm trying to do, then maybe they're pleasantly surprised instead. So I think it's just working a bit harder, I would say.
Will we can speak about this. Are you looking to expand the Maple and Fitz brand, or how are you seeing the future for you the next couple of years?
Yes, I think for, you know, we've been really fortunate. Again, my team is great, and at Maple and Fitz, we've had a very strong year. In our first year, you know, the store is pretty much, it can operate on its own. We're at, you know, this term, and people hate this term, but, you know, we're cash flow positive, which means that, you know, I no longer have to put cash to run that business on a day-to-day basis. It can pay for itself, which is great.
So just how many months in did it take for you to hit that? Because that doesn't happen. They say like 99% of businesses fail within the first year, if not two. And you found a way to
Yeah,
there?
so we are, the first time the store hit cash flow positive, we haven't broken even. Obviously, we've invested a lot to build the shop, but cash flow positive as in the end of the month, we were plus, not negative. The first time was at our 4-month mark last year. Yeah, so we opened in March, April, May, in June. So that was the first time. And then we learned that, this business is very seasonal, especially where I am. So, we built up in the summer, and then August, surprise, surprise, everyone goes on holiday. Everyone leaves London, which no one told me. We hurt in August. We lost quite a bit of money in August. And then September, because everyone's back from school, back from holiday, everyone wants to get back into their routines. We were cash flow positive again in September. So, and then, the winter months start coming around, and so it became harder and harder again. December was terrible. December was just, I just like watching money just fly out of the door. So that was really hard. So it was basically, month 4, month 7, and then again in month 11, we were cash flow positive. And since then, knock on wood, I don't know where wood is, but hopefully it continues.
But that's important because, when you have a business that, even with airlines, that seasonality, you have to go through that first year and be actually collecting data to know
exactly
where it's happening.
So true, because every location is going to be different, every city is different, it's always going to be different, and you need that 1 year absolutely to learn about it. And that's why I think coming from an engineering background, I'm a big data geek. So I think, as an entrepreneur, a lot of times people think, well, I have a vision, I have a brand, I have an idea. I think that's great. So whether it's you or someone else who helps you do it, try your best to stay on top of your numbers, because that's going to help you grow and expand, and it's going to help you learn more about your business.
Last few questions. How important is it to get the right accountant? Because accounting and taxes and it's headaches, right? It's
headaches. It's just, the accountant is as good as the information I feed him or her. So that's step 1. So I need to be organized, first of all, because if I'm not organized, they can't be organized, right? So that's step 1. Step 2 is being able to pay for an accountant. So when I first started, I had one of my best friends from childhood who's lived here and moved back to Canada. She is an accountant, so she helped me get the business off the ground, basically free of charge. She said, let me set up your accounts, I'll help you do this. And so I was really lucky, but she obviously has, her business to build as well. So once I was off the ground, she's like, well, hopefully I've given you enough. And I was like, thank you, amazing. She's like, now you have to kind of find someone to do it, or you've got to do it. And so, for a while I tried to do my own books. It was not fun. I think I cried almost every month I had to do it. It was really hard. I'm not an accountant by trade. I've never ever studied accounting. Journal entries. It was really, really hard. And so as a small business, you need to account for the fact that if you can't do it yourself, make sure you either convince a friend or you put a little bit of money aside so that you do have someone helping you with accounting. But it's really hard to find an accountant. To be honest, I still haven't cracked it. I'm meeting an accountant next week to shout at them because things still aren't going right. So I'm not actually going to shout at them.
But it's because these are some of the things that when you start up a business and you have your vision, this isn't part of the vision. This is what comes with the vision.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, I didn't know that I have to have this or that in place. And accountants can be, they could be they're different types of people.
Yeah.
And they're quite expensive. You're like, really this much?
Exactly.
Just to do this? I'll do it myself.
Yeah, and then when you try to do it, you realize how hard. And again, for some people, it's easier, but I found it very, very hard. And so the good thing though is the UK HMRC is actually incredibly. I don't know if you've ever dealt with them. They're actually incredibly helpful.
The information is there.
The information is there, and there's a number you can call free of charge. You may wait a bit for someone to pick up, but there's always someone on the other end to pick up. And if you're nice to whoever you're speaking to, they're likely going to help you and spend time explaining. They're not there to, everyone thinks, oh, the tax man, but especially for small businesses, their first and foremost role is to help you be compliant, basically. So I think the HMRC actually does a really good job supporting small businesses.